Hi, it's Tom again, and today we're going to look at fixing the stock on the Hera. Now, unless you're the one guy that popped a comment on the channel there who actually fits this stock, most of you are not going to be happy with the way this fits into the shoulder, and it's certainly not very comfortable. And this was my fix, so I started off with this, which is a Gun Tough. It's an adjustable recoil pad, and it's made up of two plates. There's a retained bolt that goes through here, and this allows this one to slide up and down. And my plan is to simply attach the plate to the back of the Hera, and then that will give me this nice adjustable rubber recoil pad. It also goes a standard thread here, so you can change this, one of the honeycomb ones if you want. This is just a soft black rubber pad, and it will stop this from slipping in my shoulder all the time, which is particularly frustrating. So the downside about this was that it needed some modification. As it's spaced for the buttstock on a firearm, it's a little bit wider than the one on the Hera. So what I've done is I've drilled and countersunk a new hole here. This is about the minimum I could leave around here because it's only cast aluminium. And then I also just tidied up this edge with a little bit of emery cloth, because it was a little sharp on this edge where it's just milled out of a piece of cast aluminium. These can be had from a number of different places. Mine came from JS Ramsbottom, insert minion joke here, and they do a lot of my shooting supply stuff. They're based in Somerset, so if you're there, they're straight out of Polton, and they do a lot of good stuff. They do a lot of online stuff as well. And this should allow me then to be able to adjust this height. I can then go up and down with where I position the pad for the most comfort, which I think is a bonus versus a cheaper fixed pad. You can get a fixed pad for not very much. So what I'm going to do with this is I've got to drill two holes into the plate at the back here. There's nothing in this black part, but you can't go too deep because obviously the tail of the magazine is there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, which is a 4.5mm drill bit, to drill two holes on the center line, and then I will use a machine screw. This is just an M4, and it's a countersunk head, and it takes an Allen bolt. These are the standard bolts that I use for holding together all my flat tops and stuff, so I have lots of these in stock. And then I'm going to put a flanged washer on the end, which is a flanged nut, sorry, which does away with the need for a washer, and basically then just clamp the two shell halves together around the nut. And that will hold the plate nice and tight, and it means I can still clamshell it open. So I'm just going to drill the two holes, and I'll show you where those are going to go in a second, and then we can get on to the fitting. So here we can see where I've marked the two hole positions. It's really hard to do this with it all together because it's so big. So what I've done is I marked my center line on some painter's tape, and then I just offered the plate up. I just offered the plate up like that, and then I've marked my holes. Obviously get my alignment fairly good. It doesn't matter if you're slightly off because you can move the plate around to compensate. So mark those, and then you don't want to drill very deep. If you have trouble keeping depth off your drill, you can always wrap some painter's tape around the shaft of the bit so that it can only go in a little way. You don't want to drill right through here. So I'm just going to quickly drill those. This is all with the shell bolted together, and then you just need to split it apart and put it around the bolts and tighten it back up. And I'll come on to that in a sec. Now I'll just zoom in so you can see here. I had to get rid of the flanged nuts because it was just slightly too loose. If you can get a flanged nylock, that would be ideal. What I've done now is I've replaced this with an M4 nylock and a washer. And what you've got to do is you've got to get this gap here so that it pinches the shell nice and tight so that this doesn't flap around. And that's relatively easy to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up, and then I've also got to remember to put in this, which is the retained bolt that goes in there. And that then holds the whole lot together. And so I've just got to slip that over the shell at the bottom here and at the top. I've done the top one, and all I've done is I've just undone some of the screws. I'm sure you could open this up fully if you really wanted to, but I'm just pinching it out. So that will just sit in like that, and then I can tighten this up in a minute. I'll have to get a pair of long nose pliers in there to grip the nut, but I just want to see how close I am to getting it right. Yeah, only a little bit, another mil or two. And then that will be held in there like that, and then obviously the buttstock will mount on there, and then I'll have my, sorry, that's the wrong way up, just to be aware that the slightly longer, thinner tail usually goes at the bottom, so it tucks under your armpit. So that will then go on there like that, and that will then give me a fully adjustable rubber buttstock plate on here. So I'm just going to finish tightening up, and then I'll show it to you when it's done. Okay, here we can see the plate fitted into its final position, and you can see that two bolts are nice and neat, and they've gone in nice and tight, and I've just crushed the two shafts together, and that now, look, is not moving. That's held nice and firmly. The camera's wobbling more than the plate. No movement in that. And remember, this is not taking huge forces, it's just being gently pushed each time you cock the blaster, and it's not getting too much lateral force. And obviously if those holes open out a little bit in the shell, you could put some more reinforcement in there if you wanted. And then what this is this is just holding this retained thread here for this to attach. So all I've got to do now is just to tighten that up, and then I'll show you the finished bit with the adjustment, and then you just need to use this, which is just an ordinary flathead to manipulate this retained part in here that allows you to tighten it up. And the other things that you're going to want is, I used a shorter bolt on the top. You want a 15mm thread on the top and then a 20 on the bottom. I used a 12, but that's a little bit short. So if you've got a 15mm on there and a 20 on there, there's enough room for the 20 in the back, but this is quite narrow because there's a screw port behind. So you don't want to go too long on that unless you want to clear the screw ports. You can see that that's fitted in quite nicely. I didn't use self-tapping screws because obviously they'll fall out. And the washers have spread the load nicely and make sure that the plastic doesn't pull through. Okay, here's the recoil pad fully attached, and you can see that this allows you to move it up and down. So when you've got it on your shoulder, you can get it in the most comfortable position. So you obviously, if you're shorter or taller, you may need to move that around. I'm just going to put it roughly in the center, and then all you do is you just tighten up the retained nut and bolt inside like that, and then there you go. So that will now give you a nice wide point of contact. It's nice and soft, and it's grippy, so it won't slide everywhere, and that should solve the shouldering problems that you get on the Hades. So there you have it. That's my Hades mod, and I'll try and get a picture outside. If I don't get a picture outside at some point today, then here's what it looks like on the blaster versus the standard one, where you can see here this really tiny narrow stock. You've now got a nice big flat area to put your shoulder, and hopefully it'll give you a better sight line down the barrel as well.